Have you ever repotted a dying orchid while your parents stole your grandmother's last penny? That morning in Vermont, I was saving Grandma Eleanor's prized orchid collection when Mom's text arrived. We're off to Panama, took the trust fund. You girls will understand someday. I smiled, soil still under my fingernails, and texted back, "Have a wonderful trip." What they didn't know? I'd moved all $200,000 yesterday. As the legal co-trustee Grandma appointed before her Alzheimer's progressed, I'd left exactly $5,000 in the old account, enough for them to think they'd won. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. I'm Orla Morrison, and at 28, I became the only thing standing between my grandmother's legacy and my parents' greed. 3 years ago, I was just the baby of the Morrison family, the one everyone dismissed at Thanksgiving dinners. At 25, fresh out of college with my accounting degree, I'd taken a job at a small logistics company in Burlington. Nothing glamorous. Mom loved reminding everyone that her youngest was playing with spreadsheets while she taught yoga to transform lives. "Sweetie, you wouldn't understand adult finances," she'd say whenever I questioned their spending. "Your father and I have been managing money since before you were born." Dad would nod from behind his laptop, pretending to write his fourth unpublished novel. "Focus on your little job, Orla. Leave the family matters to us." The family matter they meant was applewood orchards, 50 acres of heritage apple trees that had been in our family for 3 generations. And more importantly, Grandma Eleanor, who at 82 was slipping deeper into Alzheimer's each day. I'd moved back to Vermont specifically to help. Every evening after work, I'd drive the 40 minutes to the farm. Grandma would be sitting by the window, watching the orchard she no longer recognized. She'd smile when I walked in, though she called me Martha, her mother's name. "Martha, did you see the trees today? Someone should water them." "I watered them, Grandma. Every tree." My parents? They hadn't visited in 6 months, too busy with their spiritual journey in Sedona, or their writing retreat in Costa Rica, or whatever excuse they'd manufactured that month. But they never missed calling Walter Brennan, Grandpa's old lawyer, asking about the trust fund. $300,000, meant for Grandma's care and the farm's upkeep. They talked about it like it was their retirement plan. What they didn't know was that Grandma, in a moment of perfect clarity 2 years ago, had made a decision that would change everything. Applewood Orchards wasn't just land, it was living history. 50 acres stretching toward the Green Mountains, with over 2,000 apple trees representing 15 heritage varieties you couldn't find in any supermarket. Northern Spy, Esopus Spitzenberg, Roxbury Russet, names that sounded like poetry when Grandma used to recite them. I learned to graft trees here when I was 8. Grandma's hands over mine, showing me how to make the perfect diagonal cut. "Trees are like families, Orla," she'd said. "You can join different branches together, but ignore them, and they wither." Now my sister Chloe and I were the only branches left tending to anything. Every weekend we'd meet at the farm. Chloe would drive up from the hospital after her ICU night shifts, exhausted but determined. We'd work the orchard together, pruning, spraying, checking irrigation lines. We hired 3 part-time workers with our own money because the trust fund payments had become irregular. The farmhouse still smelled like cinnamon and old wood, though Grandma couldn't bake anymore. Her kitchen, once the heart of every family gathering, stood mostly quiet. The orchid greenhouse attached to the south side held her other passion, 47 varieties she'd collected over the decades, each one labeled with a memory. Bloomed when Chloe was born. Anniversary gift from Harold. Orla's graduation. The farm should have been thriving. Apple prices were up. The organic certification Grandpa had fought for was finally paying dividends. And the local farm-to-table movement meant restaurants were calling weekly for our heritage varieties. Instead, I was noticing things. Bills marked "past due" in the kitchen drawer. The tractor that hadn't been serviced in 2 years. The roof that needed repair before winter. My parents hadn't set foot on the property in 2 years, but somehow they always knew exactly how much was in the trust fund account. My mother, Patricia, considered herself evolved beyond material concerns. At 54, she'd reinvented herself from suburban teacher to spiritual life coach, though her only clients seemed to be Facebook followers who liked her posts about abundance mindset and releasing toxic energy. She'd traded her teacher's pension for crystals and meditation retreats, always funded by mysterious windfalls that coincidentally matched trust fund withdrawals. Dad, Richard Morrison, the perpetual almost famous writer, had self-published 3 novels in 20 years. Total sales, 47 copies, mostly to relatives who displayed them unread. At 56, he lived in a fantasy where his genius was simply unrecognized. Hemingway wasn't appreciated in his time either, he'd say, ignoring that Hemingway actually published books people bought. Your grandmother would want us to live our truth, Mom would say whenever she needed money for another workshop in Bali or Peru. Dad called the farm the family investment, like it was a stock portfolio instead of Grandma's home. Then there was Chloe, my anchor in this chaos. 3 years older, she'd inherited Grandma's practicality, along with her green eyes. Working ICU nights at Fletcher Allen meant she saw death regularly, which made her fierce about life. "We're all Grandma has," she'd tell me during our weekend orchard work. "Mom and Dad are just ghosts who haunt the bank account." Walter Brennan had been Grandpa Harold's lawyer since 1987. At 65, he looked like Vermont itself, weathered, sturdy, reliable. He'd handled the trust creation when Grandpa died 5 years ago, structuring it carefully for Grandma's protection. These days, he fielded more calls from my parents than from actual paying clients. Last week, he'd called me directly. "Orla, we need to talk. There's been some unusual activity." That's when I learned the word unusual was lawyer speak for "your parents are stealing everything." Walter's office smelled like old leather and coffee, the same as it had when Grandpa brought me here as a teenager. But the numbers on the papers he spread across his desk were anything but comforting. "The trust holds 300,000, he said, adjusting his reading glasses. "Your grandfather structured it specifically, 4,000 monthly for Eleanor's care, 2,000 for farm maintenance, taxes and insurance separate." I did the math quickly. "That's enough for 6 more years, maybe 7. "Should be." He pulled out another sheet. "But look at the withdrawals." My stomach dropped. $50,000 had vanished in the last 30 days alone. The memo lines read like fiction. Medical equipment, farm repairs, emergency supplies. "Grandma doesn't have new medical equipment," I said, "and I handle all the farm repairs with Chloe." Walter nodded grimly. "The pattern started 18 months ago, small amounts at first, 1,000 here, 2,000 there, but it's accelerating." I stared at the numbers. At this rate, the trust would be empty within 8 months. What happens when it's gone? Without the trust, you can't afford Eleanor's care. The farm would have to be sold to cover her expenses. She'd likely end up in a state facility. I pictured Grandma in one of those places. Fluorescent lights, industrial food, strangers who didn't know she once grew 15 varieties of apples or that she needed to see trees from her window to stay calm. "Can we stop them?" Walter pulled out a folder I'd never seen before. "That depends. How much do you know about your role in the trust?" "My role?" He smiled for the first time, the kind of smile lawyers get when they're about to play a winning card. "Your grandmother was sharper than anyone gave her credit for. Let me show you something." For the past year, I'd been having monthly banking meetings that my parents mocked relentlessly. "Our little accountant, so serious with her folders," Mom would laugh. "You know money is just energy, sweetie. It flows where it needs to." What they didn't know was that those meetings weren't at the bank. Every first Tuesday, I'd drive to Walter's office. He'd been teaching me about trust law, fiduciary duty, and something called financial elder abuse. There was a locked filing cabinet in his office with my name on it. Literally, a brass nameplate that read, "O. Morrison." "Your grandmother asked me to prepare you," Walter had said 6 months ago. She knew this day would come. At home, I kept my own locked cabinet in my bedroom, bank statements, copies of trust documents, receipts for every farm expense Chloe and I covered ourselves. My parents thought it was where I kept my boring work stuff. The mail had started coming differently, too. Certain envelopes from Merchants Bank arrived addressed only to me, not the Morrison family trust, like before. When Mom asked about them, I'd shrug. Probably marketing. You know how banks are. Chloe had noticed the changes. Last week, while we were fixing the irrigation system, she'd said, "You're planning something." Just being careful. She'd smiled, wiping sweat from her forehead. Good. Someone needs to be smarter than they think we are. Even Grandma, in her fog, seemed to sense something. Yesterday, during a rare lucid moment, she'd grabbed my hand. "The papers," she'd whispered. "You have the papers?" "Yes, Grandma." "Good girl. Don't let them... don't let them sell my trees." I'd promised her then, not fully understanding what she meant. But as Walter opened that folder in his office, showing me documents dated 2 years ago, I finally understood exactly what Grandma had done. Walter spread 18 months of bank statements across his desk like evidence at a trial. Each highlighted withdrawal told a story of escalating greed. "Look at the pattern," he said. "January last year, 2,000 for medical supplies. February, 3,000 for home repairs. By December, they were taking 15,000 monthly." I traced the numbers with my finger. $150,000. Gone. "Every withdrawal has the same signature," Walter continued. "Your mother's, and they all go to the same place." He pulled up a laptop, showing me bank records. "Banco Nacional de Panama." They've been building quite a nest egg. My hands shook as I photographed each statement. "How did you get these?" "Your grandfather was paranoid about oversight. The trust requires duplicate statements to both trustees and the attorney of record. Your parents probably forgot that detail." Then he showed me the email that made my blood run cold. "Playa Bonita Resort in Panama, confirming the Morrison retirement package, 6 months prepaid, Ocean View Suite, starting in 2 weeks." "They're not planning a vacation," I said. "They're leaving permanently." "That's not the worst part." Walter pulled out another document. "This came yesterday. A mortgage application. $70,000 against Applewood Orchards." The signature at the bottom looked like Grandma's, but I knew better. Grandma couldn't write her own name anymore. She'd forgotten how to hold a pen 6 months ago. "This is fraud," I whispered. "Federal crime," Walter confirmed. "Elder abuse, forgery, wire fraud. Your parents are looking at serious prison time if this comes to light." I stared at the forged signature. My grandmother's name written by the daughter who was supposed to protect her. "They booked their Panama flight for next Friday," Walter said. "Whatever you're going to do, you need to do it now." Friday morning started like any other. I was at the farm early, checking on Grandma's orchids. The dendrobium she'd gotten for her 50th anniversary was struggling, root rot from overwatering. I was carefully trimming the damaged roots when my phone buzzed. "Mom, meeting friends in Burlington, need $5,000 for investment opportunity, transfer today." I stared at the text. They'd never been this bold before, always taken the money quietly, with fake documentation. This was just straight theft. I texted back. "Can't do that, the trust has rules." My phone rang immediately. "Don't be difficult, Orla." Mom's voice had that edge, the one that used to make me cave as a child. "This investment could double our money. Your grandmother would want us to be smart about finances. Grandma doesn't even know what money is anymore." "Exactly why we need to make decisions for her. Transfer the money." "No." Silence. Then Dad's voice. He was on speaker. "Orla, we're the trustees, not you. You're just a child playing accountant." "I'm 28. And we're your parents. We've been managing this family's finances since before you were born. Don't make us come up there." The threat hung between us. I looked at Grandma's orchid, its roots exposed and vulnerable. "Do what you need to do," I said, and hung up. 2 hours later, Walter called. "They've submitted a withdrawal request for the entire trust balance, $200,000. The bank needs both trustee signatures. They can't get mine. They're claiming sole trusteeship, saying you were never legally added. My heart pounded. But the documents are safe. But Orla, they're trying to clean out the account before leaving for Panama. I've stalled the bank, but I can only buy you 24 hours. I looked at Grandma through the window. She was sitting in her chair, staring at nothing, unaware her own children were robbing her blind. Walter, I said, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. Remember that plan we discussed? Are you sure? Once you do this, there's no going back. I thought about the forged mortgage, the stolen money, the Panama resort. My parents had already crossed every line. It's time. I'll be at your office in an hour. As I drove away from the farm, I saw Grandma's face in the window. For just a moment, she looked right at me, really saw me, and nodded. Maybe she knew. Maybe somewhere in that fog, she understood what I was about to do. Walter's office safe opened with a soft click. Inside, among other documents, was a folder that would change everything. March 15th, 2021, he said, pulling out the papers. Your grandmother came to me alone. Still driving then, still sharp most days. She knew what was coming. The document was pristine, notarized, witnessed. Power of attorney and co-trusteeship, Orla Morrison. She made you co-trustee when you were 26, Walter explained. Equal authority to your parents. But she was smart. She had me hold the documents until you needed them. I read Grandma's shaky handwriting in the margin. In case Patricia and Richard forget their duties. She knew they were taking money? She suspected. Your grandmother might have been losing her memory, but she never lost her intuition about people. Walter pulled out another document. She also wrote this. A letter, dated the same day. My granddaughter Orla has always been the responsible one. If you're reading this, it means I was right to trust her. The farm and I are in good hands. My eyes burned. She planned for this. She protected you and the farm the only way she could. As co-trustee, you have full authority to move funds if you believe they're being misused. The law calls it breach of fiduciary duty. So I transfer every penny to a protected account. Your parents would need your signature to access it. He pulled out forms already prepared. The question is, are you ready for what comes next? They'll fight this. I thought about Grandma sitting in her chair, trusting us to care for her. About the farm that had been in our family for generations. About my parents, already packed for Panama with stolen money. They started this fight when they forged her signature, I said. I'm just finishing it. Valley Credit Union was smaller than Merchants Bank, but that's exactly why I chose it. The manager, Janet, had gone to school with Grandma. We can open the account immediately, she said after reviewing the co-trustee documents. Full protection, dual signatures required for any withdrawal over $100. My fingers hesitated over the transfer authorization. $200,000, Grandma's entire future, about to move in one click. Second thoughts? Walter asked. No, just, they're still my parents. Who are stealing from their sick mother. I entered the amount, but instead of $200,000, I typed $195,000. Walter raised an eyebrow. Leave $5,000 in the old account, I said. If it's empty, they'll know immediately. This way they'll think they still have access. They'll try to take it. A trap. Evidence. When they try to withdraw money after I've explicitly protected it, that's attempted theft. Clear intent. Janet processed the transfer. Done. The funds are now in the protected account. My phone buzzed immediately. An alert I'd set up for any activity on the old account. My parents had just tried to withdraw $200,000. Transaction denied. Insufficient funds. 3 minutes later, they tried $150,000. Denied. Then $100,000. Denied. Then $50,000. Denied. Finally, $5,000. Approved. Walter smiled grimly. They took the bait. They're probably celebrating right now, I said, thinking the system glitched, but they got something. What about your sister? Chloe doesn't know. If mom calls her, she needs to honestly say she has no idea what happened. This protects her. I drove back to the farm, my phone silent for once. My parents were probably too busy planning their Panama paradise to wonder why $195,000 had vanished. They'd find out soon enough. If you've ever had to protect family from family, you know this feeling. That moment when love means saying no. Before we continue, please hit subscribe and tell me in the comments. Have you ever had to set hard boundaries with parents? Your stories help others know they're not alone. Now let me show you what happened when they arrived in Panama. Saturday morning brought an unexpected delivery to the farm. Certified mail from Greenfield Savings Bank, requiring signature. Regarding your recent mortgage application. The letter began. My blood went cold. Applewood Orchards had been paid off since 2003, Grandpa's proudest achievement. But here was confirmation of a $70,000 home equity loan, approved, funds disbursed 2 weeks ago. The signature on the application was Orla Morrison, the same shaky forgery from the trust documents. I called Walter immediately. They took out a mortgage on the farm. Forward me everything. Keep digging, but carefully. Don't let them know you know. That afternoon, my parents made an unexpected appearance at the farm. First time in 6 months. Mom was practically glowing, Dad humming as they walked through the door. Just wanted to check on Mother, Mom said, though she didn't go near Grandma's room. And you girls, you both look tired. Chloe and I exchanged glances. Our parents never worried about us looking tired. We're fine, Chloe said carefully. Just the usual farm work. Dad wandered to the window overlooking the orchard. This place could be worth a lot to developers. $1 million, maybe more. It's not for sale, I said. Everything's for sale at the right price, he replied. Then, too casually, how are those banking meetings going, Orla? Still playing with spreadsheets? Still boring, I said. You know me. Mom laughed, that tinkling fake sound she'd perfected. Our little rule follower. Well, we should go. Lots to do before our trip. Trip? Just a little vacation. We deserve it after all these years of sacrifice. After they left, Chloe turned to me. They're up to something. I know, I said, holding the mortgage documents. And it's worse than you think. Their Facebook post started Sunday night. Mom, radiant in a flowing dress, standing in what looked like a high-end furniture showroom. Sometimes life calls you to make brave changes. Hashtag new beginnings. Hashtag follow your bliss. By Monday, they were selling everything. Their car appeared on Craigslist. Dad's writing studio furniture, really just a desk and pretentious leather chair, went for cash to the first buyer. Mom held a spiritual cleansing sale of her yoga equipment and crystals. Downsizing to find our truth, she told their neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, who immediately called me. Your parents said you girls are taking over everything, Mrs. Patterson reported. Said you insisted they retire and enjoy life. Such good daughters. Tuesday brought an email to my work account. Orla, handling some banking matters. Don't worry about the trust for a while. Mom and Dad. Then Chloe found the real tell. A Panama expat Facebook group where Mom had posted, 2 weeks until we join you in paradise. Any tips for new permanent residents? The responses were enthusiastic. You'll love it here. Retirement dollars go so far. Best decision we ever made, someone asked about visiting family. Mom's response chilled me. Our daughters are independent now. Sometimes you have to choose your own happiness. Wednesday, Dad posted a photo of 2 one-way tickets to Panama. The departure date, Friday, November 8th, but the most telling post came Thursday morning. Mom, holding champagne at the airport lounge. Sometimes you have to take what's yours and never look back. Hashtag no regrets. Living our truth. The comments from their friends were confused. What about your mother? Someone asked. Mom's reply. The girls will manage fine. That's when I knew they thought they'd gotten away with everything. The mortgage money, the trust fund, a one-way ticket to paradise. They had no idea the trust account they'd celebrated stealing from held only $5,000. Thursday afternoon, everything went wrong at once. Grandma fell in the bathroom. Chloe called me from the hospital, voice tight with exhaustion. Broken hip, she needs surgery. How much? 8,000 after Medicare. They want it up front. 8,000 we didn't have, personally. The protected trust account held plenty, but any withdrawal would alert my parents through the duplicate statements. I had to use my credit card, maxing it out. While Chloe stayed with Grandma, I rushed back to the farm. The irrigation system had chosen this exact moment to fail, a main line rupture that was flooding the Heritage Apple section. $3,000 for emergency repair, or we'd lose 50 trees. My savings account emptied in one transaction. My phone rang constantly. Mom, Dad, unknown numbers. I didn't answer, but their voicemails told the story. Orla, there seems to be a banking error. Call immediately. Stop playing games, we know you did something. You have no right to that money. Meanwhile, they were posting from first-class airport lounges, champagne selfies. Adventure awaits. Captions. Their friends commenting how brave and inspiring they were. Mrs. Patterson called again. I saw your mother at the bank. She was quite upset, yelling at the manager. Something about accounts? Walter texted. They've tried accessing the trust 17 times in 3 hours. Stay strong. Chloe finally called from the hospital. Grandma's out of surgery. She's asking for you. Well, she's asking for Martha, but she means you. I drove to the hospital covered in mud from fixing irrigation lines, my credit cards maxed, savings gone, watching my parents' plane tracker show them boarding their flight to Panama. Almost there, I whispered to myself. Just a few more hours. Friday morning, 6 a.m. I was repotting Grandma's anniversary dendrobium when the text arrived. Mom, we're off to Panama, took the trust fund. You girls will understand when you're older. Attached was a selfie from Tokeman International Airport. They were glowing, triumphant, holding champagne flutes in the priority lounge. I texted back, have a wonderful trip. Then I screenshot everything. Chloe called 30 seconds later. What do you mean, have a wonderful trip? They just robbed Grandma. Trust me, I said, soil still under my fingernails from the orchid. Everything's going exactly as planned. Orla, what did you... The less you know right now, the better. Just keep Grandma comfortable. I'll explain everything soon. My phone exploded with notifications. The old trust account, the one with $5,000, showing withdrawal attempt after withdrawal attempt. They were at ATMs in the Panama airport, trying to pull cash. Each attempt triggered an alert I'd set up. $1,000 approved. $2,000 approved. $2,000 approved. Balance remaining, $0. Then came the text from Dad. Why is the account showing zero? We had confirmation of $200,000 transfer. I didn't respond. Mom. Banking error. Calling them now. 20 minutes passed. Dad. What did you do? Mom. You moved the money, didn't you? You little thief. The irony of being called a thief by the woman who forged her own mother's signature on a mortgage almost made me laugh. Walter texted, Resort just ran their credit card for the initial charge, $2,000 cleared. The next charge will be interesting. Playa Bonita Resort required payment in full upon checkout. In 3 days, my parents would try to pay an $8,500 bill with maxed-out credit cards and an empty bank account. In 3 hours, they'll be at the resort, I told the orchid as I settled it into fresh soil. And in 3 days, everyone will know exactly who they really are. By Friday afternoon, my parents' social media transformed into a paradise portfolio. The Playa Bonita Resort was everything they'd dreamed. Infinity pools overlooking the Pacific, swim-up bars, 5-star restaurants where they ordered lobster and champagne. Living our best life, Mom posted with a sunset selfie. #retirement goals, #blessed, #finally free. Their friends loved it. Hearts and congratulations flooded in. "You deserve this! So inspiring! Can't wait to visit." Someone asked how long they were staying. Dad responded, "This is our new home, permanent residence of paradise." Meanwhile, my phone showed a different story. 17 attempts to access the protected trust account. 3 calls to Merchants Bank demanding to speak to managers. 1 legal threat email from Dad about unauthorized account manipulation. Walter forwarded me their email to him. "Our daughter has stolen our retirement funds. We demand immediate action." His reply was perfect. "As trustee, Ms. Morrison has full authority to protect trust assets. Please provide documentation of your withdrawal authorization." They couldn't, of course, because they'd never had sole control. They just thought they did. At 4 p.m., I got the notification I'd been waiting for. Resort charge attempt $500 for spa services. Declined. Insufficient funds. Insufficient. They must have brushed it off as a card glitch, because an hour later, restaurant charge $340. Approved on their second credit card. They had no idea they were burning through their last available credit. Chloe texted from the hospital. "Grandma's stable. She said something weird though, clear as day. Did Orla save my orchids?" Like she knew. I looked at the greenhouse, where 47 orchids bloomed in defiance of neglect. "Tell her they're all safe." That evening, Walter sent the final piece. Mortgage payment due in 15 days. $70,000 balloon payment they thought they'd cover with trust funds. When they can't pay, bank initiates foreclosure. Everything was converging. The empty account, the maxed credit cards, the mortgage fraud about to explode, and my parents dancing on Instagram, oblivious to the trap they'd walked into. I opened my laptop and pulled up the mortgage documents, the forged signatures, the proof of elder abuse. In 60 hours, they'd try to check out of paradise. "Let's see how blessed you feel then," I whispered, hitting record on my phone. The video call that was coming would need to be documented. Monday evening, 7 p.m. Panama time. I was sitting in Grandma's hospital room when my phone rang. Video call from Mom. The scene behind her was chaos, the pristine lobby of Playa Bonita Resort, but something was wrong. Other guests, well-dressed couples, families with designer luggage, were watching my parents with that particular mix of second-hand embarrassment and morbid fascination. "What did you do?" Mom's face was red, tears streaming through her makeup. "Hello, Mom. How's Panama?" "Don't play games. The account is empty. The cards are declined." Behind her, I could see Dad arguing with someone in a suit, the manager probably. His voice carried, "There must be a mistake. We're not those kind of people." A woman with a German accent said clearly, "They cannot pay their bill. $8,000. "Where's our money, Orla?" Mom demanded. "Grandma's money is safe," I said calmly. "All $195,000 of it. That's our retirement." "No, it's Grandma's medical and farm fund. You stole $150,000 over 18 months. I have every receipt, every fraudulent transfer." The manager appeared in frame, speaking to my father. "Sir, if you cannot pay, we must ask you to leave immediately." An American couple at the concierge desk was openly recording on their phone. Someone whispered, "Elder abuse," loud enough for everyone to hear. "You little bitch." Dad grabbed the phone from Mom. "We're your parents. We have rights." "You have the right to face fraud charges," I said. "Check your email." I watched him fumble with his phone, his face draining of color as he opened the attachment. The mortgage documents, Grandma's forged signature, the $70,000 loan against the farm. "Oh my God," someone behind them said. "They stole from their sick mother?" The manager stepped closer. "Should I call the police?" Mom was sobbing now, mascara running in black streams. "Please, Orla, please, we're stranded." "You're not stranded. You're facing consequences." The German woman spoke again, this time directly to her husband but loud enough for everyone. "Disgraceful! Their poor mother has Alzheimer's and they robbed her. The lobby had become a theater, and my parents were the show everyone was watching. Their paradise had transformed into a public humiliation. 3 days, I said. 3 days you've been posting about your blessed life while Grandma's in the hospital with a broken hip, while Chloe and I max out our credit cards for her surgery. 3 days of champagne selfies funded by fraud. Everyone's watching, Mom hissed into the phone, trying to shield the screen. But it was too late. The lobby of Playa Bonita had become their courtroom. Good, I said. Let them watch. You stole from an 82-year-old woman with Alzheimer's, your own mother. We were going to pay it back, Dad's voice cracked. With what? You're broke, maxed out. And in 15 days, the bank forecloses on Grandma's farm unless you pay the $70,000 you borrowed with her forged signature. A collective gasp from the bystanders. The American woman recording stepped closer, making sure her phone caught everything. That's fraud, someone said in accented English. Federal crime. The manager intervened. I must insist you settle your account immediately or leave the premises. We can't leave. Mom was hysterical now. We sold everything. We have nowhere to go. You have two options, I said loud and clear. Walter Brennan has the documents ready. I held up the papers to the camera. Option 1, sign over the farm deed to Chloe and me. We'll pay off your fraudulent mortgage and you avoid federal prosecution. That's extortion, Dad shouted. No, that's mercy. Option 2, I file charges tomorrow morning. Elder abuse, fraud, forgery. That's 5 to 10 years in federal prison. The German couple had moved closer. The woman said to her husband, not quietly, in Germany, this would be automatic jail. Mom grabbed the phone back. Everyone's recording us. You've ruined us. You ruined yourselves the moment you forged Grandma's signature. 24 hours to decide. Walter's email has the documents. Behind them, the resort manager was speaking rapidly into his radio. Security was probably coming. Please, Mom whispered, and for the first time in my life, I heard real fear in her voice. We're your parents. And she's your mother, the one with Alzheimer's, the one whose money you stole while she forgot our names. The American woman lowered her phone and spoke directly to my parents. I'm calling my mother tonight. Thank God she has better children than you. The call dropped. Or maybe Mom hung up. Either way, the last image I saw was my parents surrounded by disgusted strangers, their paradise collapsing around them. Walter texted immediately. That was recorded by at least 3 guests. It's already on TikTok. 10 minutes after the first call ended, Mom called back. This time, they were in their room, but I could hear voices in the hallway. Other guests, discussing what they'd witnessed. There's more, I said before they could speak. Check your email. Walter sent everything. I watched their faces as they opened the attachments, the mortgage documents, the forged signatures magnified, compared side by side with Grandma's real signature from when she could still write. The bank statements showing every stolen withdrawal. The medical records proving Grandma couldn't have signed anything for the past 6 months. $70,000, I said. Due in 15 days. When you can't pay, the bank forecloses on Grandma's farm, the farm that's been in our family for 3 generations. We were going to what? Pay it back with the trust fund you thought you stole? The retirement paradise you bought with Grandma's medical money? A knock at their door. The manager's voice. Mr. and Mrs. Morrison, we need to discuss your account. Dad muted the call, but I could still see everything. The manager entered with security. Papers were produced. Mom started crying again. The security guard stood by the door, ensuring they wouldn't run. They unmuted. We need money for flights home, Dad said, defeated. With what credit? You maxed everything, sold everything, burned every bridge for this paradise. You can't leave us here. I'm not leaving you anywhere. You chose this. Every withdrawal, every lie, every forged signature was a choice. The manager spoke up. his voice carrying clearly. "You have 1 hour to vacate. If you cannot pay, we will hold your luggage until the debt is settled." Behind him, through the open door, I saw other guests in the hallway. Someone said clearly, "Those are the people who robbed their mother." Another voice, "I got the whole thing on video. Elder abuse." Mom looked directly at the camera, and for once, the Instagram filter was gone. She looked old, desperate, exactly like what she was. A woman who'd stolen from her sick mother and got caught. "Sign the papers," I said. "It's your only way out." "We'll sign," Mom whispered. "We'll sign everything." "Good. Walter will send instructions for the embassy notary." Dad grabbed the phone one last time. When did you become so cruel?" "Cruel?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Let me tell you about cruel. Cruel is Grandma crying because she can't remember her daughter's name, but somehow knows someone is stealing from her. Cruel is Chloe working triple shifts to pay for farm repairs while you're booking spa treatments. Cruel is forging your mother's signature while she's dying of Alzheimer's." The manager cleared his throat. "The police have been notified about the potential fraud." Mom went white. "You called the police?" "No," the manager said. "Other guests did. They were quite disturbed by what they heard." Through the phone, I could see someone in the hallway holding up their phone, still recording. The video title was visible: "Couple robs mom with Alzheimer's for Panama vacation." "It has 50,000 views already," the person said. "And climbing." My parents looked broken. For the first time in my life, they looked their age. Two middle-aged people who'd thrown away everything for a fantasy. "The documents," Dad said quietly. "We'll sign them all. Just, please, we need help getting home. Chloe and I will buy you one-way tickets to Burlington. Not to the farm. You're never setting foot on that property again." "Where will we live?" "That's not my problem. Maybe Aunt Martha will take you in, if she's forgiven you for stealing from your mother." The manager stepped forward. "You have 40 minutes to leave." The last thing I saw before ending the call was my parents frantically packing, while strangers in the hallway documented their shame. Someone said, loud enough for the camera, "I'm calling my parents tonight to tell them I love them, and to make sure their accounts are protected." Paradise had become purgatory, and everyone was watching. Within hours, my parents were infamous. The TikTok video hit 1 million views. Entitled "Couple Robs Mom with Alzheimer's" became trending on Twitter. Reddit had a thread with 3,000 comments dissecting every second of the lobby confrontation. They were kicked out of Playa Bonita with their luggage held as collateral. The $40 in Mom's purse got them to a hostel in Panama City, a moldy room with shared bathrooms where backpackers half their age looked at them with confusion. Mom tried to save face on Facebook, taking time to reassess our journey. The comments were brutal. "Saw the video. How could you? Your poor mother, praying for Eleanor. This is who you really are? Thieves?" Their yoga community released a statement. "We cannot associate with individuals who commit elder abuse." Mom's 10 years of teaching erased. Dad's writing group was worse. The president posted publicly, "A writer who forges signatures has no place in our community." By Tuesday, they were selling jewelry at a Panama City pawn shop. Mom's investment rings went for $200. Dad's pretentious watch, the one he claimed was vintage, got them 80. Aunt Martha's response to their plea for help was screenshot and shared by cousins. "You stole from your mother with Alzheimer's. You're dead to this family." Uncle Joe was blunter. "Rot in hell." Their church back home, the one they attended twice a year for appearances, held a special prayer circle. For Grandma Eleanor, not for them. The Panama expat community they'd planned to join had their own Facebook discussion. The consensus: we don't want these people here. They were trapped in paradise with $280, no credit, no home to return to, and a viral video ensuring everyone knew exactly what they'd done. I didn't have to say anything. The internet did it for me. While my parents huddled in their hostel, I posted a single photo. Me and Chloe with Grandma in her hospital bed, surrounded by her orchids we'd brought to cheer her up. Caption: some of us stayed to care. Within hours, 50,000 likes, 3,000 shares. Comments flooded in. Your parents are monsters. Thank you for protecting her. My daughter did the same to me. You're angels. The yoga studio where Mom taught posted their own statement. Patricia Morrison represented herself as a spiritual leader while committing elder abuse. This contradicts everything yoga stands for. Her Instagram followers dropped from 5,000 to 300 in 2 days. The remaining were mostly bots and people waiting to see her response. Dad's situation was worse. His self-published books, all 3 of them, started getting 1-star reviews. Can't support someone who steals from his sick mother. Amazon removed them after reports of moral violations. The Panama expat groups were surgical in their exclusion. Patricia and Richard Morrison are not welcome at any community events. Posted publicly. Pinned to the top. Someone leaked their hostel location. Not the address, but enough details that other guests knew who they were. A backpacker from California posted, sharing a room with the Alzheimer's thieves. They cry all night. Walter called with an update. The bank's seen the video. They're investigating the mortgage fraud independently now. Your parents are facing federal charges whether they sign or not. Then why would they sign the farm over? Because if they cooperate, you can advocate for leniency. If they don't, you testify against them. That evening, they called from the embassy. We're ready to sign, Dad said. No fight left. Everything. Just, please, we need to come home. Home. As if they had one anymore. Sometimes protecting family means protecting them from family. If this resonates, please subscribe and share your thoughts below. Have you ever had to choose between being liked and doing right? Your courage might inspire someone facing the same choice today. Let's see how this ended and what happened to Grandma's farm. Even broken, they tried one last manipulation. We're your parents, Mom said over the embassy's video call. We raised you, sacrificed everything. You sacrificed nothing. Grandma and Grandpa paid for our education. Grandma watched us while you went to find yourselves for months at a time. That's not true. I have the receipts. Literally, Grandpa kept everything. They pivoted. We'll contest the trust. Say you manipulated a sick woman. Walter leaned into frame beside me. I have a video from 2021. Eleanor, completely lucid, explaining why she was making Orla co-trustee. Would you like me to play it for the federal investigators? On the embassy screen, I saw Dad's last hope die. They tried Chloe next, calling her separately. She conference called me in without telling them. Your sister has lost her mind, Mom pleaded. She's destroying our family. You destroyed our family when you forged Grandma's signature, Chloe said. I knew everything Orla was doing. I helped plan it. The revelation broke them completely. Their final attempt was public manipulation. Dad posted on Facebook, "Our daughters have abandoned us in a foreign country." The responses were devastating. You abandoned your mother with Alzheimer's first. Karma. They should have had you arrested. Someone posted the video link, again, now at 2 million views. A reporter from Vermont Public Radio reached out to me. Would you comment on your parents' situation? No comment, I said. Except this. Check on your elderly parents. Make sure their finances are protected. The story aired that evening. Local woman stops parents from stealing Alzheimer's patients' life savings. My parents, watching from their hostel on someone else's phone, saw their last shred of reputation evaporate. We'll sign, Mom texted. Everything. Just make it stop. But it was too late to make it stop. The internet never forgets. The foreclosure notice arrived at the farm like a ticking bomb. 15 days to pay $70,000 or lose everything. My parents sat in the embassy's sterile conference room, signing their names on every document Walter had sent. The notary, a stern woman who'd clearly seen the video, made them initial every page with obvious disgust. "State your names for the record." "Patricia and Richard Morrison," they mumbled. "And you're signing these documents of your own free will?" They looked at each other. Free will. They'd had free will when they stole, when they forged, when they boarded that plane. "Yes," Dad said. "And you understand you're transferring all ownership of Applewood Orchards to your daughters?" "Yes." "And this is to avoid prosecution for fraud?" Mom started crying again. "Yes." The notary's expression didn't change. "Sign here, initial here, and here." With each signature, they signed away their last connection to the family fortune they'd tried to steal. The embassy clerk, processing the documents, asked the question everyone wondered: "Why didn't you just take care of your mother?" Dad had no answer. Mom just sobbed. Meanwhile, I sat in the bank manager's office in Vermont, $70,000 cashier's check drawn from the protected trust account. "Paying off the fraudulent mortgage," I explained. "We're aware of the situation," he said carefully. The video was enlightening. Even the bank manager had seen it. "The investigation?" I asked. "Ongoing. But with the mortgage paid and your parents' cooperation, the federal charges might be reduced to probation." Might be. If they were lucky. If the judge was merciful. That evening, I got the confirmation. Deed transferred. The farm was officially mine and Chloe's. My parents were still in Panama, begging relatives for plane fare. Everyone had seen the video. No one would help. Chloe had been recording everything too. "I knew you'd need backup," she said, showing me her phone. 3 months of recorded calls where our parents threatened, manipulated, and admitted to borrowing from the trust. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Same reason you didn't tell me about the co-trustee status. Plausible deniability." We sat in Grandma's hospital room, playing one recording for Walter. Dad's voice. "That money is ours anyway. Mother would want us to have it." "That's admission of intent," Walter said. "Add it to the file." The extended family chose sides quickly. Grandma's 2 sisters, Rose and Helen, called from Florida. "Eleanor always said you were special, Orla. She knew Patricia would do this." "She knew?" "Mothers always know. That's why she protected you with those papers." The local news picked up the story. Elder fraud scheme stopped by granddaughter, ran on the evening broadcast. They interviewed the bank manager, who confirmed suspicious activity had been reported. The reporter asked me, "Do you feel guilty?" "I feel guilty it took me so long. How many elderly people are being robbed by their own families right now?" The segment ended with resources for protecting elderly relatives from financial abuse. My parents, still in Panama, saw the broadcast on the hostel's common room TV. Another guest recognized them. "Hey, you're those people who robbed their mom." They fled to their room, but there was nowhere to hide from what they'd become. Uncle Joe called me that night. "I was wrong to cut you all off. I didn't know you were protecting Eleanor. We're here if you need anything." The family was healing, without my parents in it. "Grandma would be proud," Chloe said. From her hospital bed, Grandma smiled at something only she could see. Maybe she knew, maybe somehow she knew. The documents were signed, notarized, and filed. Applewood Orchards was ours. But my parents were still trapped in Panama, and despite everything, I couldn't leave them there indefinitely. "We'll buy them tickets," I told Chloe. "One way to Burlington." "Not here?" "Never here. They're banned from this property forever." The tickets cost us $1,400 we didn't have. More credit card debt. But it was worth it to end this cleanly. I sent them the confirmation numbers with a simple message. "Your flight leaves tomorrow. Aunt Martha has agreed to let you stay with her for 1 week. After that, you're on your own." Mom called immediately. "1 week? Where will we go?" "Get jobs, find an apartment. Live the life you should have been living instead of planning to steal Grandma's future. We're 54 and 56 years old. And healthy. Unlike Grandma, work like everyone else." Dad took the phone. What about our things? You sold everything, remember? For your paradise fund. They had nothing to come back to. No house, no cars, no furniture. Just the clothes in their suitcases and the shame that would follow them forever. Aunt Martha had agreed to 1 week only. After what they did to Eleanor, that's more than they deserve. But family is family, even the rotten parts. The Panama hostel owner was relieved to see them go. They cried every night. Other guests complained. As they boarded the plane, someone recognized them. "Aren't you the people from that video?" They pulled baseball caps low over their faces and said nothing. Paradise was over. Reality was flying coach middle seats back to a life they'd tried to escape by stealing from the woman who'd given them everything. The plane lifted off, carrying them back to face what they'd done. They landed in Burlington at midnight, November rain pelting the tarmac. Aunt Martha picked them up in stony silence. 1 week, she reminded them at her door, and you buy your own food. That first morning back, reality hit full force. Mom applied at Walmart. The manager recognized her from the video. "We'll be in touch," he said. 3 days later they called. Not for the management position she'd applied for, but for overnight stocking, $12 an hour. She took it. Dad's humiliation was worse. The bookstore, the library, even the coffee shop, everyone knew. Finally, Pizza Palace hired him as a delivery driver. The owner hadn't seen the video. Yet. They lived in Martha's basement, sleeping on an air mattress, eating ramen they bought with their first paychecks. "We could sue for part of the farm," Dad said one night. Martha laughed bitterly. "With what lawyer? What money? And what judge would side with you after that video?" Everyone in town knew their story. At Walmart, customers would stare at Mom, whispering. Some took photos. She had to wear a name tag. Patricia, happy to help. No one wanted her help. Dad's delivery routes took him past the farm sometimes. He'd slow down, looking at the lights in the windows, the smoke from the chimney, the life he'd thrown away for a week in Panama. Chloe saw him once, parked at the gate. "I almost felt sorry for him," she told me. Then I remembered Grandma asking where her money went. They were living the life they'd left Grandma to, scraping by, forgotten, unwanted. Except Grandma had dementia as an excuse. They had only greed. With the deed secured, I paid off the fraudulent mortgage using the protected trust funds. $70,000 to clean up my parents' mess. "The farm is free and clear," Walter confirmed. "No liens, no debts. It's entirely yours and Chloe's." We stood in the orchard, November wind shaking the bare branches. These trees had survived 3 generations of Morrisons. They'd survive this too. Chloe moved into the farmhouse that weekend. "Someone should live here. Grandma would want the house warm." I stayed in my apartment in town but came every evening. We hired proper caregivers for Grandma, 2 wonderful women who treated her with the dignity she deserved. "She loves looking at the trees," one told us, "even if she doesn't remember planting them." The community rallied around us. The local co-op offered to buy our entire apple harvest at premium prices. "We support family farms," the manager said. "Real families." We started weekend U-Pick events. Families came from Burlington, Boston even, to pick heritage apples and hear the story of the farm. Not the ugly parts, just the beauty of what Grandma and Grandpa had built. The trust fund began rebuilding. Without my parents draining it, the farm's profits actually accumulated. Within 3 months, we'd restored it to $180,000. "It'll be over $200,000 by spring," our accountant confirmed. "Your grandparents would be proud." The orchids bloomed like they knew they were safe. The dendrobium I'd been repotting that morning, when everything changed, sent up 3 new shoots. Grandma, in her wheelchair by the window, smiled at the orchard. She couldn't speak much anymore, but sometimes she'd pat my hand and nod. She knew. Somehow she knew we'd saved it. 3 months later, February in Vermont, snow blanketing the orchard like a promise of spring to come. My parents had found a studio apartment above the Chinese restaurant on Church Street. 500 square feet for $900 a month. Mom still stocked shelves. Dad still delivered pizza. They'd aged 5 years and 3 months. They sent a letter, not asking for money for once. We've started therapy. The court mandated it, but we would have gone anyway. We're beginning to understand what we did, not just to Mother, but to you, to everyone. Chloe read it, unmoved. Too little, too late. But there was something different in the tone. No manipulation, no guilt trips, just acknowledgement. They want to come for Thanksgiving, I told Chloe. Absolutely not. I agree, but maybe Christmas. 2 hours, supervised. You're softer than me. No, I just think Grandma would want us to try. Not forget, never forget, but try. The farm was thriving. We'd hired 2 full-time workers, good people who loved the land like we did. The spring orders were already coming in. Restaurant contracts, farmers market commitments. The heritage apples were in demand. Grandma had good days and bad days. More bad than good now. But yesterday, she'd looked right at me, really looked, and said, "You saved the trees." "Yes, Grandma." "Good girl. They're safe now?" "Forever safe." She'd smiled and drifted back into her fog. But for that moment, she knew. I wrote back to my parents. Continue therapy. Keep working. Send monthly letters to Grandma, even if she can't read them. In 6 months, we'll discuss a supervised visit. 2 hours, no promises. It wasn't forgiveness. It was barely mercy. But it was a start. 6 months after Panama. May in Vermont. The orchard exploding with apple blossoms like nature's own redemption song. I stood in the greenhouse, reporting the anniversary dendrobium, the one I'd been working on that morning when everything changed. It had not just survived, but thrived, sending up 5 flower spikes covered in purple and white blooms. Orchids are survivors, Grandma had taught me. With proper care and boundaries, they'll outlive us all. The farm was valued at $1.2 million now. The Heritage Apple program we'd started was featured in Vermont Life magazine, saving history 1 apple at a time. They mentioned Grandma's varieties, not the family drama. The trust fund had rebuilt to $182,000 and climbing. Grandma's care was secured for the rest of her life, however long that might be. The medical equipment she actually needed. The caregivers who sang to her. The room with a view of her trees. My parents still lived in their studio apartment. Mom had been promoted to day shift at Walmart. Dad was writing again, not novels, but apology letters. To Grandma's sisters, to the family, to us. Their therapist sent a report. They're beginning to understand the entitlement that led to their actions. Richard admits he felt the world owed him success. Patricia is processing how her spiritual bypassing was actually avoidance of responsibility. They'd sent another letter last week. We don't expect forgiveness. We know trust, once broken like this, doesn't rebuild. We stole from someone who couldn't defend herself. That's who we became. But we're trying to become different people now. I'd agreed to a visit, Christmas Eve. 2 hours. In the farm's kitchen, not Grandma's room. They arrived in an Uber. They still couldn't afford a car. Older, grayer, smaller somehow. The orchard looks beautiful, Mom said quietly. It always did. You just never looked. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where Grandma had taught me to make pie crust. They didn't ask for money. Didn't hint at moving back. Didn't play victims. They talked about their therapy, their jobs, their shame. We're thinking of volunteering, Dad said. At the elder care facility, reading to residents. It was something. When they left, Mom touched my hand briefly. Thank you. For saving her. For saving the farm. For stopping us from becoming worse than we already were. Walter retired that spring, but not before training me in the basics of estate law. You have a gift for protecting people, he said. Consider law school. I was considering it. Part-time while running the farm. Grandma would have loved the irony, her baby becoming a lawyer. Chloe had news of her own. I'm pregnant, she announced over Sunday dinner, due in October. The father was James, the organic certification inspector who'd been finding reasons to visit more often than annually required. A good man who understood land and legacy. "We'll raise the baby here," Chloe said. "On the farm, like Grandma raised us." My promotion to CFO at the logistics company came with a salary that meant we could hire a full-time farm manager. The orchard would thrive whether or not we were there every day. The elder abuse organization asked me to speak at their annual conference. 300 people listened as I explained the signs: unusual withdrawals, isolation from family, sudden changes in documents. Check on your elderly relatives. Ask questions. Don't assume family means safe. The video of my parents' humiliation had evolved from viral shame to educational tool. Law schools used it in elder law classes. Banks trained tellers with it. My parents' fraud had saved other families. The state investigation concluded with probation for my parents. 5 years of monitoring, community service at elder facilities, and mandatory continued therapy. No jail time, but a federal record that would follow them forever. The mortgage company implemented new verification procedures for elderly customers. The Morrison case, they called it internally. Even Playa Bonita Resort sent a formal apology. "We should have handled the situation with more discretion." They offered a free week stay. I sent it to the elder care facility for their fundraising auction. Everything had found its place. The farm was safe. Grandma was cared for. My parents were facing consequences while getting help. The trust now required both sisters' signatures for any withdrawal over $1,000. Ironclad. Unbreakable. Justice served, not with revenge, but with boundaries. Sunday dinners at the farm became our new tradition. Chloe, James, and me around Grandma's table. The 2 empty chairs were never mentioned, but never filled either. Grandma's orchids bloomed in rotation now, 47 varieties creating a constant display of color, each one labeled not just with its name, but with a memory. Orla's first repotting, Chloe's wedding gift, Eleanor's 80th birthday. That last one was a lie. My parents had missed her 80th birthday for a wine tour, but we kept the label. Some fictions are kinder than truth. Chloe's pregnancy progressed beautifully. "It's a girl," she announced. "Eleanor, Ellie for short." Grandma couldn't understand the news, but she smiled at Chloe's growing belly, sometimes patting it gently. "Baby," she'd say, one of the few words left to her. "Yes, Grandma, your great-grandbaby." I taught financial literacy at the library Tuesday evenings. Protecting your elderly parents' assets drew standing room only. People shared their own stories, the uncle draining dad's accounts, the sister with mom's credit cards. "Set up safeguards before they need them," I always emphasized. "Once dementia starts, it's too late." My parents sent birthday cards, no money requested, no guilt trips included. Just, "Happy birthday, love Mom and Dad." Small progress, but noted. The community had adopted us as local heroes, though we rejected the label. The coffee shop never charged me. The hardware store gave the Morrison girls contractor discounts. The newspaper ran a follow-up story. 1 year later, Applewood Orchards thrives. But the best moments were quiet ones. Grandma in her wheelchair in the greenhouse, surrounded by her orchids. The smell of apple blossoms through open windows. Chloe singing to her belly while making Grandma's apple butter recipe. "Family isn't who you're born to," Chloe said one evening, watching Grandma smile at something only she could see. "It's who shows up. And who you protect," I added, adjusting the dendrobium's stake. "Even from other family." 1 year after Panama. I sat in the greenhouse at dawn, the anniversary of that morning when everything changed. The same dendrobium, now magnificent with blooms, perfumed the air with vanilla and honey. "I lost my parents but saved my grandmother," I said aloud to the orchids. They'd heard it all by now, better listeners than therapists, and twice as beautiful. There was no regret, only relief that still surprised me with its completeness. The money had never been about greed for me or Chloe. It was about dignity, Grandma's right to stay in her home, to see her trees, to be surrounded by beauty, even as her mind dissolved into mist. My parents' latest letter showed real growth. We understand now that we felt entitled to an inheritance from someone still living. We saw Mother as an obstacle to our happiness instead of a person deserving care. That's the ugliest truth we've learned about ourselves. They were still in therapy, still working minimum wage, still living in that studio apartment. But they were also volunteering at the elder care facility, reading to residents who had no one else. Maybe Christmas again, I told Chloe. 3 hours this time. You're more forgiving than me. Not forgiving, just allowing for change. People can change, right? After consequences. Only after consequences. She was right. They'd stolen from someone who couldn't remember their crime. That's not something you come back from easily or ever completely. But humans are complex. My parents were thieves and volunteers, criminals and reforming souls, the children who'd failed their mother, and the workers trying to earn redemption one minimum wage hour at a time. Sometimes love means letting people face consequences, I told the financial literacy class that week. Not protecting them from their choices, but protecting others from their harm. An elderly woman raised her hand. My son's been asking about my accounts. Get a lawyer tomorrow, I said. Walter Brennan if you're local. Don't wait until it's too late. 3 people stayed after class for referrals. 3 more families protected. Grandma couldn't speak anymore, but yesterday she'd held my hand while I repotted her anniversary orchid. Her eyes, though clouded, had stayed on my face the entire time. She knew. Even in the fog, she knew I'd kept my promise. The trees were safe. The orchids were blooming. And boundaries, once set, had saved us all. Late afternoon sun slanted through the greenhouse glass, turning everything golden. I was repotting the anniversary dendrobium again. Orchids always need fresh boundaries to bloom. Grandma sat in her wheelchair beside me, quiet now in the way of deep water. The confusion that had tormented her for years had given way to something almost peaceful. She watched my hands work the soil, the same way she'd watched me as a child. Chloe waddled in, 8 months pregnant now, carrying tea on Grandma's good china, the stuff my parents had tried to sell online before Panama. 3 cups, she said, pouring carefully. 1 for each of us. We sat in comfortable silence, 3 generations of Morrison women who'd learned that protection sometimes looks like prosecution, that love sometimes requires lawyers, and that family is defined not by blood, but by who waters the orchids when the world goes dark. Through the glass, applewood orchards stretched toward the mountains, 2,000 trees heavy with fruit, their branches reaching skyward like prayers answered. The heritage varieties Grandpa had grafted, Grandma had tended, and we had saved. No Panama postcards decorated our refrigerator, but no angry letters arrived either. Just birthday cards, therapy updates, and the slow work of 2 people learning to live with what they'd done. The trust fund statement lay on the potting bench, $182,000, and growing. Every dollar protected, every boundary holding firm. Grandma's eyes found mine, a rare moment of focus. Her lips moved, no sound, but I read the shape. Safe. Yes, Grandma, everything's safe. She smiled and returned to watching the orchids, these impossible flowers that survive neglect, theft, and betrayal to bloom again, more beautiful for their scars. Grandma taught me orchids need proper boundaries to bloom, I said, settling the repotted dendrobium into its new home. Turns out, so do families. If you've made it this far, you understand that protecting families sometimes means protecting them from themselves. What would you have done in my position? Share in the comments below. Your perspective matters. If this story resonated, please subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear that setting boundaries isn't cruel, it's necessary. Check out my next story about a daughter who discovered her mom's charity work was actually a scam targeting seniors.